Several explosions were heard in Ukraine's capital Kyiv today. Ukrainian officials claim Russia launched its hypersonic missile. Air raid sirens blared across the Ukrainian capital. Authorities say there were no casualties. Meanwhile, Ukraine's foreign minister Dmytro Kuleba has asked the US for more long-range missiles. The foreign minister said, and I quote, "Real support like weapons and ammunition needed for our counteroffensive is vanishing." Kuleba also said that the peace summit in Saudi Arabia last week was a quote-unquote major breakthrough. A drone was intercepted over the Russian capital Moscow today. Moscow's mayor said there were no casualties or damage to buildings. Russia's defense ministry says another drone was jammed and brought down over Moscow. Russia claims that the drones were launched from Ukraine. Russia has deployed its air and naval assets for a military exercise in the Arctic region. Over 8,000 military personnel are taking part in the drills. Submarines and destroyers have been deployed. Russia has also deployed its high-altitude fighter jets. Russia successfully launched its moon lander spacecraft today. This is Moscow's first lunar project after 47 years. The moon lander is named Lunar 25. The spacecraft is expected to touch down on the south pole of the moon on the 21st of August. Russia's moon mission is competing with India's Chandrayaan-3 moon lander. The Indian spacecraft is also on a mission to the moon's south pole. Chandrayaan-3 is expected to land on the 23rd of August. Poland is planning to send over 10,000 soldiers to its eastern border with Belarus. Warsaw is building up its borders due to the presence of the Wagner mercenary group on the Belarusian side. Poland's defense minister said, and I quote, "We are reinforcing the border so that the aggressor does not dare to attack my country." India, Japan, Australia and the United States have begun the Quad war games called Malabar exercise. Military personnel of the four nations arrived in the Australian city of Sydney today. The training will be held over a period of 10 days. This is the first time that Malabar exercise is being held in Australia. The Economic Community of West African Nations, or ECOWAS, met in Nigeria's capital Abuja yesterday. The bloc says that all options to restore stability in Niger were being considered. This includes a potential military intervention. After the meet, ECOWAS nations pledged stricter sanctions against Niger. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni slammed the World Bank's decision to suspend new funding to the East African nation. He said, and I quote, "It's unfortunate that the World Bank is coercing us to abandon our culture." This week, the World Bank halted new loans for Uganda over the nation's strict anti-LGBTQ laws. The bank says Uganda's laws fundamentally contradict its values. A Kenyan court has denied bail to pastor and cult leader Paul Mackenzie in a fresh ruling yesterday. Judges ordered an additional 47 days of custody for the pastor. Mackenzie is in jail for being the leader of a suicide cult in Kenya. At least 400 people who are part of the cult have been found dead and over 600 are still missing. Lebanon has deployed its army in a village following a shootout between religious groups. At least 2 people were killed in the clashes yesterday. During a search operation, the army seized a truck carrying weapons and ammunition. Lebanon has blamed the Iran-backed Hezbollah for stirring communal tensions. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Iran has released 5 Americans from prison and put them under house arrest. The detained Americans were released last night. Blinken said that the Biden administration was working with Iran to bring the Americans home. He also called Tehran's move a positive step. Ecuador's government says the suspects involved in presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio's assassination are foreigners. Police officials say one suspect was killed during a shootout yesterday. Now at least 6 others have been arrested. Ecuador's police say the suspects are Colombian nationals. Protests erupted in Argentina's capital Buenos Aires yesterday. Demonstrators clashed with police over the brutal murder of an 11-year-old girl. Earlier this week, the child was killed on her way to school. CCTV footage showed two people robbing an ATM and fatally shooting the girl as they drove by. The protesters shouted, "We want justice, we want safety." Moving to climate news, the death toll from wildfires in Hawaii's Maui has climbed to 55, with thousands still missing. The flames have razed buildings and structures to the ground in the American island state. Footage shows the devastating aftermath of the fires, which has left the resort town of Luhanu in ruins. Earlier this week, at least 3 major fires broke out in Maui. Typhoon Khanun has left 1 person dead in South Korea. Rescuers were seen evacuating a trapped resident and pulling out submerged cars. Reports say residents in the capital city of Seoul are worried about the long-term damage that the typhoon may cause. Meanwhile, Typhoon Khanun also brought heavy rains and wind to North Korea. The storm weakened into a tropical depression as it crossed the country overnight. Reports say officials are implementing a disaster emergency response system and devising evacuation plans. In China, the country's National Observatory has renewed a blue alert for Typhoon Khanun. It is expected to enter China on Saturday morning. The typhoon is expected to bring hail and heavy rains to the country's northern and northeastern provinces. This comes as China is still reeling from the destruction caused by Typhoon Doksuri. Heavy rain has flooded streets and disrupted traffic in the Canadian capital of Ottawa. This comes as severe storms moved across the city. The Environment Department of Canada has issued a severe thunderstorm warning. This is to alarm residents about the possibility of flash floods. Afghanistan is the world's 6th most affected country by climate-related threats. This is according to the Global Climate Risk Index. Persistent and severe drought in Afghanistan is threatening the country's economy and food security. Experts say climate change will only worsen the drought. Higher temperatures, less rain, and snow in the mountains will shrink rivers and prolong the drought. Moving to business and tech, New Zealand is planning to propose a new legislation. It will ask large businesses to report the state of their gender pay gaps. This will cover around 900 businesses that employ more than 250 workers. The requirement will eventually be extended to cover companies that have more than 100 employees. This comes as the country looks to increase equity in workplaces. Singapore has slightly cut its annual economic outlook for this year. This is after it narrowly averted a recession in the second quarter. According to government data, Singapore's GDP grew by 0.1 or 0.1% from April to June. In its first quarter, the country reported a 0.4% decline in its GDP. A country enters a technical recession if it records 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. Australia's Supreme Court has blocked the local arm of PricewaterhouseCoopers from removing one of its partners. In July, the firm named 8 partners who had either left or were supposed to leave the company. This was after an internal investigation into a tax document leak scandal in Australia. However, one of the partners then sued PwC Australia, accusing it of not providing sufficient reasons for his removal. The Australian Supreme Court has now ruled in favor of the partner. According to a new report, Japan is planning to introduce tax breaks for domestically made electric vehicle batteries and semiconductors. The new tax breaks could come as soon as April 2024. This move is aimed at encouraging companies to bring production back to Japan from China. It follows similar industrial policies in the United States and the European Union. Germany's semiconductor shortages will take years to resolve. This is according to a senior manager at automaker Audi. He says that the chip shortage will persist despite plans by chip makers to build factories in Germany. This year, companies such as Intel and Taiwan's TSMC have announced plans to set up German plants. Amazon is reportedly shelving several of its private clothing brands. This comes as the e-commerce giant tries to cut costs and address antitrust scrutiny. It has decided to eliminate 27 of its 30 in-house label clothing brands. This leaves the company with just Amazon Essentials, Amazon Collection, and Amazon Aware. Regulators in the US state of California have approved the expansion of robotaxis. A robotaxi is a self-driving or driverless taxi. The move comes despite vigorous opposition from some residents and city agencies over safety concerns. It will allow Alphabet's Waymo and General Motors' Cruise to operate round-the-clock services. They will compete against ride-hailing and taxi services dependent on human drivers. Space tourism company Virgin Galactic flew 3 tourists to the edge of space yesterday. They were the company's first set of commercial tourists. The passengers included an 80-year-old man called John Goodwin. Goodwin became the second person with Parkinson's to go into space. The other 2 Virgin Galactic passengers were Keisha Shahaf and Anastasia Meyers. They are the first mother-daughter duo to go to space. The US Treasury Department is set to propose a rule that will crack down on the country's real estate sector. It would effectively end anonymous luxury home purchases. The rule will require real estate professionals to report the identities of the buyer who pay for properties in cash. The American agency's move is expected to close a loophole that allows tax evaders, terrorists, and other criminals to hide their illicit income. According to reports, a US cybersecurity advisory panel will investigate the risks of cloud computing. They will also probe Microsoft's role in a recent breach of government email systems by suspected Chinese hackers. The panel will focus on risks to cloud computing infrastructure. This includes identity and authentication management. Moving to sports, in cricket, India's captain Rohit Sharma expressed concerns about the team's batting order ahead of the World Cup. India is still looking for a batter for the crucial number 4 position in the ODI or the one-day international team. Rohit Sharma said, and I quote, "Number 4 has been an issue for India in ODI since Yuvraj Singh left." He said a high number of injuries has hampered the team. The ICC Men's ODI World Cup starts from the 5th of October. In football, Sweden beat Japan 2-1 in the FIFA Women's World Cup quarterfinals. Amanda Eliasstad scored the opening goal for Sweden in the 32nd minute. The second goal was scored by Filippa Angelal. Sweden will now play against Spain in the semi-finals on Tuesday. Spain beat the Netherlands 2-1 in the FIFA Women's World Cup quarterfinal. The match went into extra time after the two sides were at 1-1 after 90 minutes. Then Spain's Salma Paraluelo scored the winning goal at the 111th minute. This is the first time Spain has reached the semi-finals of the FIFA Women's World Cup. England forward Lauren James has been given a 2-match ban by FIFA. This was after she got a red card for stepping on the back of a Nigerian player during England's last match. This means James will miss the quarter-final against Colombia and the semis if England qualify. 21-year-old James is England's top scorer in the World Cup. German giants Bayern Munich have agreed to a deal with Tottenham Hotspur for Harry Kane. The deal is worth over $110 million. Harry Kane is Tottenham's all-time top scorer with 280 goals. He will now travel to Munich for a medical. Brazilian defender Roger Ibanez has left Italian side AS Roma to join the Saudi Pro League. He will join the club Al Ahly on a 4-year deal. The financial details of the deal haven't been disclosed. 24-year-old Ibanez had scored 3 goals in 48 games for Roma last season. In tennis, world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz reached the quarterfinals of the Canadian Open. Alcaraz defeated Hubert Hurkacz of Poland in the men's singles category. He lost the first set to Hurkacz but rallied back 7-6 and 7-6 in the next 2 rounds. World number 1 Iga Swiatek qualified for the Canadian Open quarterfinal. Swiatek defeated Karolina Muchova of the Czech Republic in the women's singles category. She won 2 out of 3 sets. Swiatek will now face Danielle Collins in the next round. World number 3 Elena Rybakina of Kazakhstan also reached the Canadian Open quarterfinals. She defeated her American opponent 6-3 and 6-3 in the women's singles category. Rybakina's next match is on Saturday against Daria Kasatkina. Australian tennis player Nick Kyrgios has withdrawn from the upcoming US Open. Kyrgios said this was because of a wrist injury. The 28-year-old sustained multiple injuries last year and has not recovered yet. Kyrgios had also pulled out of the previous 4 Grand Slams. The US Open begins on the 18th of August. In the world of entertainment, the Barbie movie released in Japan today. Hundreds of fans flocked to the theatres to catch the blockbuster hit. This comes after an apology from distributors Warner Brothers. The movie's release was delayed after a controversy surrounding the trend of Barbenheimer. Barbenheimer's trend emerged after Barbie and Oppenheimer released on the same date. Memes of Barbenheimer linked the doll to the atomic bomb. This caused outrage in Japan. Negotiations between striking actors and writers and major studios begin today. Disney, Warner Brothers and Netflix are some of the major studios that will join these negotiations. The strikers' unions say they will demand guarantees against bringing artificial intelligence into the writing industry. Meanwhile, the striking actors are demanding improved compensation. The negotiations come after the SAG-AFTRA and WGA strike marked 100 days yesterday. Meanwhile, the 75th Emmy Awards have been postponed to the year 2024. This is due to the ongoing writers and actors strike. Organizers for the Emmy say the awards will now be hosted on the 15th of January. That is, if the striking unions agree terms with the studios. Rapper Travis Scott's concert in the Italian capital of Rome did not go as planned. The concert was held near Rome's iconic Colosseum. Over 60,000 people attended the musical show. At least 60 fans were injured during a stampede. The chaos happened after an altercation broke out between fans. Officials in Italy say the stampede caused a small tremor, which damaged the nearby ancient sites. Beyoncé's Renaissance tour has become the highest grossing concert tour among black artists of all time. Revenue from her ongoing tour has crossed almost $300 million in earnings from 33 shows so far. Beyoncé has also sold over 11.5 million tickets, the highest for any black artist for a given tour. Queen Bey is currently performing in Europe. Canada and the US are the next stops on Beyoncé's tour. Korean boyband BTS member V released a new music video titled Love Me Again. The video hit 1 million views in just 7 minutes. Love Me Again has now become the fastest music video by a male to hit 1 million views this year. The song is a prequel to V's upcoming debut album Layover, which will release in September. Singer Lorde has shared a cryptic message about a potential new album. The artist wrote on Instagram, and I quote, "I have so much to tell you. I will show it to you soon." Fans are speculating that the 26-year-old singer will announce her new album shortly. The speculations come after Lorde revealed glimpses of a new soundtrack earlier this year. Singer and actor Rihanna has dropped a new maternity wear collection. The maternity collection will be part of her luxury fashion brand called Savage X Fenty. Riri also took to social media to open up about the challenges of being a parent. She's currently expecting her second child with rapper A$AP Rocky. Media celebrity Kim Kardashian is receiving backlash from her followers. She took to Instagram to promote an MRI body scan costing over $2,000. She reminded her followers to undergo routine health checkups, particularly to detect early stages of cancer, following which her followers slammed her for promoting health checkups that most people cannot afford. They called Kardashian tone deaf. And finally, rock band Fleetwood Mac's co-founder Mick Fleetwood's restaurant was burnt down in the wildfires in Hawaii. The American islands have been engulfed in massive flames for the last 2 days. The drummer announced that his eatery called Fleetwood on Front Street was completely charred. However, he assured his followers that all his staff, including his family, were safe.